All right, good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Mother's Justice Show. I am your host, Omari Salisbury. On the street, they call me the Big O. Filled in this week for my mama, the Reverend Harriet Walden. We have a great episode on tap for you this week as we are joined by, the dean of the class, a true legend and in all senses of the word. You might know him 39 years at KIRO Television. More awards and accolades than we have enough time to be able to talk about. We're joined today by Essex Porter. How are you?
I am fine. Very good to be here. Nice thing about being on the radio is they can't see you blush when either you have this over-the-top introduction. But thank you very much.
Well, the other thing is my whole career, I don't know how I ended up on screen at Converge. My whole career, they was like, you have a face for radio. And I spent a good part of my early career actually in radio. Before we get going, big shout out to our producer today, Eric Burris, and we have a photographer in here today, my good friend, colleague, and Converge Media co-founder, Eric Calligraphy. Essex, we're going to get into a bunch of different topics today. One, the Seattle Association of Black Journalists, which I'm a member of, but you're the treasurer. I might need to re-up my dues.
Almost everybody needs to re-up their dues. As treasurer, I can tell you that. And
we also want to talk about the landscape right now. As somebody who's spent almost 4 decades covering the news here in Seattle, not only Seattle, but across the Pacific Northwest and several national stories as well. And then we want to talk about the Seattle Association of Black Journalists and what's been going on there. But before we do that, and I know even Eric is going to be so happy to hear this news, my mom, who had been in the hospital for maybe the last 8 or 9 months, she finally is home. And this is actually the first episode that she's actually listening to live. So, Mom, hey, welcome home.
This sounds fabulous. And, I got to interview Reverend Walden many times in my career. So it's a special shout out to you, Reverend Walden. Glad to hear you are doing better and will be behind these microphones very soon.
Yeah, Elder, she biting at, she chomping at the bit, as they say. I talked to her yesterday, and I told her, I said, Mama, Essex is going to be the guest tomorrow. Oh, man, she smiled so big. She said, Essex Porter is coming on my show? I said, yeah, he's going to be there. So we know that she's listening right now and very happy to be here. For people who don't know, even though I gave this introduction, I do have something here that we put together. Essex Porter is a retired Emmy-winning, and he's won some awards, much bigger than the Emmy, by the way, but people recognize the Emmy-winning political reporter who held down the fort for 39 years at KIRO 7 Seattle. He now serves as the Cascade Public Media Board of Directors and is the treasurer of the Seattle Association of Black Journalists. Is that accurate, sir?
That is accurate. Well, the thing about the awards may be a little over the top, but the rest of it is accurate.
Well, for us, you're the people's champ. And I think that might, be one of the top ones. I like growing up in the Central District and being in this media space and seeing people like yourself and even when I was younger, as Connie Thompson and Steve Poole and Deborah Horn and all these guys. I mean, just you might not think about it when you go to work every day, but like your presence reaffirms to somebody like myself that it's possible. You know what I'm saying? And it's it just is. And yeah. And I remember one time, you might not remember this. I got the picture though. I got the receipts. This was, this was 10 years ago.
Okay.
It was actually the first time I met you, and it was something that was happening on the Capitol. It was Black Legislative Day, but there was something else that was happening there. And then I came up to you, and I was like, hey, can I take a selfie with you? And what you did, you corrected my camera. You were like, I had it one orientation. You were like, no, actually.
You must have had it vertical. You should be taking these pictures horizontal.
I had it vertical. And you actually took my camera and you flipped it and everything else. So, you know what I'm saying? But why don't we just jump right into it? As you can tell, I'm very excited to have you here.
Well, and you spoke of my friends, colleagues, and contemporaries. And I think, for all of us, We all very much loved the job we were doing. And the best way to open doors for others who were doing that job was to do the best we can and just be that silent example. When I retired, it really wasn't until I retired a few years ago that people like you, because we had not met after, seen each other in many years, people like you and others said, because you were there, I gave it a try. Because you were there, I knew it was possible. And there, people who I had never met, but I realized that there was value in being just that silent example of someone who was there. And this doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what business you were in. If you are the black scientist who is there, where there probably aren't a lot of black scientists, but there's a young person who loves science and sees you there as an example of somebody who can do it, then that means they can try to do it too. Yeah.
Well, man, you guys set the bar high, which is great. That's exactly what you were supposed to do. And like you said, in doing your best, in seeing, what's possible and seeing what's happening, it's real. Representation is real in such a big way. And I'd be like fanboy. I remember the first time because I met almost everybody also at the same time of the protest. And so here I am trying to give very serious interview here to Deborah Horn, and my mama loved Deborah Horn, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to Deborah Horn, but I'm talking about what's happening at the protest, and I'm like, so.
Yeah, well, there's a reason I tease Deborah Horn, but nobody ever says I'm wrong. Deborah Horn is the queen.
Oh yeah, 100%. So Essex. But before we get into what's going on here today and in Seattle and everything else, you mentioned here, or one of the things I read in here is the Seattle Association of Black Journalists. I wanted to start there, and what SABJ is, and what guys have been up to.
Yeah, so Seattle Association of Black Journalists is very much just that. We are. We might be just about 4 decades old. It came together as a unit just after I got here, but one of the founding mothers was the late Patricia Fisher, who was I believe the first woman and first black woman to be on the editorial board at the Seattle Times, and she. Even before the group came together, there weren't that many folks of color in journalism here. So, they became Northwest Journalists of Color. And, there were, pretty much everybody in the BIPOC community was together there. And, as those communities grew, then, we added Seattle Association of Black Journalists. Now, still keeping our affiliation with Northwest Journalists of Colors, but then we had enough folks to have an organization and meetings and plan programs. So it comes from that. Normally, our meetings are pretty much journalist focused. We try to support each other in the day-to-day battles of working in our individual companies. Occasionally we do programs for the public that are more media and journalism focused, but we did a program in March that was designed much more for the broader community. And I hope you all pardon me because I really do have to give a little cough here.
No, it's all good. Actually, I'll pick it up right here. And I think what you're talking about there in March was Angela Poe Russell's musical, which was Aviatrix. And maybe if you have it, you can tell people a little bit more about Angela and Aviatrix.
Yes, Angela Poe Russell, many of you will recognize her as a news anchor on Channel 7, doing TV broadcasting on Channel 5. She is so multi-talented, so multifaceted, so passionate about telling stories. And one of the things we wanted to expose the general public here too was that journalism is not just the narrow strip of writing a newspaper article or broadcasting on TV and the radio. Journalism is telling our community story, America's story, in many different ways. And Angela is so fantastic at that. One of the things she did, she took a story some of us have heard of, hasn't been emphasized that much in history lately, but in the early 20s, there was a young black woman by the name of Bessie Coleman who decided she wanted to learn to fly. Now, this is just after airplanes had been invented. She wanted to learn to fly. If you were a woman, you weren't invited to flight school. If you were a black and Native American woman like Bessie was, you definitely were not invited to flight school. She ended up going to Paris and became the first woman to get, the first Native American, African American woman to get an international pilot's license so she could be a pilot. She fought her way up and learned to fly. She fought through all the barriers. And Angela Poe Russell wrote a musical telling her story. You know, you can write a book, you can write an article. She is telling the story through a musical. And one of the things we thought would be great for the community would be to show some previews of this musical so that people would know that it was coming to Seattle Public Theater. Pardon me. They would know that it was written by a journalist telling a story, and it was a form of journalism. So we put a lot of time, a lot of resources into creating a preview that we did at the Northwest African American Museum.
Yeah, which was really great, by the way. And the Seattle Association of Black Journalists, annually, it's always something. You know, it's Black Voices Matter, which, by the way, I was on the initial one.
You were the inaugural guest for Black Voices Matter.
Joyce Taylor came to our studio at the time, and I was there. And then we actually hosted two in the Black Media Matters studio. Like, I'm really happy to see that, like, the concepts evolve. And, like, one thing for me with SABJ is I like how really you guys are expanding. Or we, and remember, still need to pay my dues, but we are expanding who can call SABJ home. You know, it used to really be like, you know, if you don't have a byline somewhere, if you're not a reporter somewhere, then it's like, hey, but, you know, I think that you're expanding as well into more of Black people who are in the media space or the media ecosystem.
Right. You know, we have to. You know, there are so many different ways people are getting their news. So, you know, we expand to those outlets, those ways people are getting their news, the people who are using those outlets. You know, before we get too far beyond our discussion of the program we had in March, you know, we had a lot of help getting an audience for that program, making sure the community knew. You and your team at Cascade at Converge, were phenomenal. The team at Converge was just great. You know, I'd get a little note going up on Instagram again. You know, that's part of the reason we were able to get such a good crowd. You know, the traditional Black media here was fantastic with us. You know, Seattle Medium, Seattle Facts. Newer medium, the South Seattle Emerald was great with us. And it just proved that, you know, we needed that whole ecosystem. There was no way SABJ could, by ourselves, make sure that enough people would take a chance and give up a beautiful Saturday afternoon, by the way, but come inside and just be amazed by the Aviatrix cast, the performance they put on, this fantastic interview that Deborah Horn did with Angela Poe Russell, her creative process and the process of putting together a musical. You know, I was part of it, so I'll brag on it. I think it was really, really successful, and just appreciate everybody who helped us get there.
Yeah, and big shout out again to the very amazing and talented Angela Poe Russell, who's also the host of Community Voices. That's our special show on Converge. We do about 2 or 3 community voices a year. She was also the launch producer for our show Back to Besa. And so we've had the opportunity to work with Angela Poe Russell on a few different fronts. And like you said, not only a talented journalist, but also writes musicals and all kinds of other stuff.
Yes. And, it's a way, highlighting her work is just a way of showing that there are many different important outlets to reach people with the stories that need to be told.
Right. Storytelling is it's where it's at. We're going to take our first break right here. We're talking to legendary reporter, broadcaster, Essex Porter, and you're listening to the Mother's Justice Show.
Looking for media that truly represents us? Converge Media is where culture meets truth. Seattle's leading Black-owned media network, bringing you powerful stories, local news, and conversations that matter. From the morning update show to groundbreaking community coverage, Converge shines a light on the voices that shape our city, our leaders, our artists, our families. Stay informed, stay inspired, stay connected at whereweconverge.com. That's whereweconverge.com. Converge Media, telling our stories, our way.
Hey, y'all. It's time we take care of what's ours. The Black Legacy Homeowners Hub is now open at the McKinney Center, a safe space to learn, connect, and protect our family homes. Whether you're fixing up your house, passing it down, or just trying to hold on, we've got real people, real help, and real answers waiting for you. So come on by. Drop in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the McKinney Center on 21st and Jackson. Let's keep our legacy strong. Together.
When our children aren't safe, none of us can rest. Mothers for Police Accountability has been standing on the front lines for decades, demanding justice, truth, and transparency in Seattle. But we can't do it alone. We need you, parents, students, neighbors, to join us. Volunteer, speak up, be part of the movement that keeps our communities safe and our voices heard. Visit mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. That's mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. And stand with the mothers who never stop fighting for what's right. Mothers for Police Accountability. Love in action for justice. Being a Black homeowner in the Pacific Northwest comes with questions, and you don't have to find the answers alone. Black Homeowner Magazine is your trusted source for support, education, and community, helping you protect your home, your equity, and your generational legacy. Inside every issue, you'll find real stories, expert guidance, and local resources, all designed to keep Black homeowners informed, connected, and rooted right here in the Pacific Northwest. Because ownership is more than property, it's community. Black Homeowner Magazine, where ownership meets community.
Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/1150KKNW.
All right, welcome back to the Mother's Justice Show right here at 1150 a.m. KKNW. I'm your host, Omari Salisbury, also known as the Big O, and we're joined today in the studio by a name many of you guys in the listening audience know. A man, retired reporter, a broadcaster, 39 years at KIRO 7, Essex Porter.
Oh, I am very glad to be here and very appreciative of your work in Converge at large. We were talking about the Seattle Association of Black Journalists and our program on Angela Poe Russell's musical. Again, Converge was absolutely incredible in helping us get the word out about that. And as I was thanking folks, I neglected, unfortunately, to thank KKNW, which was also instrumental.
Yes.
Eddie Rye had us on his show and made sure we got the word out through this channel as well. So I just wanted to be sure to mention that.
No, that's big. I think what you're saying, too, is you kind of mentioned it before, is that the different medias came together for one purpose, which is really great. Because, especially like in the Black media ecosystem, it's like we're all like competitors, of course, but we're more collaborators than we are competitors. Oftentimes, if Rainier Avenue Radio is doing something, we'll promote that, or they'll promote something we're doing, or the Emerald, or X, Y, and Z. But it's usually individual in our own ecosystem. So it was great for SABJ and for Aviatrix, for all of us to be able to point attention and highlight it all at the same time.
And, at the beginning of our discussion, I mentioned Patricia Fisher, who was one of the founders of SABJ. We have a scholarship in her name that we give out each year. And, the proceeds from the ticket sales, we simply applied that money to the scholarship. So we'll be announcing a scholarship winner in a few weeks. This year was my turn to help with the applications, and great young folks there. So be looking forward to the scholarship winner. I don't know exactly when that's coming out, but it's close.
Well, you'll send that information over to us at Converge, and we'll get it out there. Now, you've been staying busy since retirement, and matter of fact, you might have been hanging with these guys even before retirement. But you're on the board of Cascade PBS, and if I recall this correctly, because I'm old school, that's like old school Channel 9 or something, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's the Channel 9 folks. It is. We are more than a broadcast channel, but that's the fundamentals. And I had not been connected except to appear on a program or two occasionally before retiring. But a few minutes after I retired, it felt like they recruited me to be on the board. And you mentioned Connie Thompson earlier, and Connie Thompson always gives the advice, when you're retired, don't jump into anything right away. Well, I thought about it for a little bit, but it felt like a good fit because, at Cascade PBS, we do a lot of journalism, and we have this great board of people with all kinds of expertise in corporate operations and in finance and in marketing. But, there's a role for someone with experience in journalism as well, and I felt I could contribute in that way. Right.
And you said that Cascade PBS is more than just a channel. And what all does Cascade PBS do?
Okay. So we start off with, at our core, are two television stations. We have a television station in Seattle and a television station in Yakima. So we are PBS for the Cascade region, including Central Washington, and including actually British Columbia, where we are on cable and have a good base of folks who like watching American public broadcasting and are contributors, fortunately, to Cascade PBS. So, we are trying to inform and educate and inspire the region in all of its diversity. Those are our goals. So, as you know, we have the great entertainment program. We're the home of Downton Abbey. We're the home of great journalism like Frontline, and great science programs like Nova. We're the home of all this fabulous kids programming. So we have a lot that we work on to be sure that we can keep bringing to the public.
Right. And as far as I think a lot of the programs that you mentioned, people know they're very big flagship programs for public broadcasting as a whole. What kind of things does Cascade PBS do, like here on the local level, and also things that might be uplifting or spotlighting issues of, say, Black and brown communities?
Yeah. We have some really just excellent local programming, and it kind of spans the gamut. We are probably best known for Mossback, Knute Burgess' program, his series that goes into Northwest history, and some of Northwest history is great and happy, and some of it is not as happy, and Knute gets to all of it. But there are some programs that, are especially led by African Americans. Our news feed, our daily short newscasts, led by Paris Jackson, who a long time ago from Channel 4, but has been at at Cascade PBS for a few years now. You'll see her little broadcasts. If you're watching television, you see them just before the top of the hour. The best place to tune in, the best time to tune in is just before 6 o'clock p.m. because she's right before the PBS NewsHour. And then, they will do all kinds of important policy discussions and cultural discussions. They did a great series on immigration policy, a great series with people who are affected by the floods. Pardon me. And they've also, we're in June and it's Pride Month. They just did a great series on Pride Month. So you're getting some of the stories that you may not get much of in our commercial television. They're off doing a great job on other things, but we want to be sure here that we capture the important things that touch the entire Cascade region. And by the way, when I mentioned the PBS NewsHour, there's always a talk over who anchors the evening news. But it's the PBS NewsHour, it's the national newscast that has an African American who is actually co-anchoring the national evening newscast, and which is it is a great newscast. It's not the sort of rat-a-tat-tat super fast-paced newscast. It is the important stories of the day told by people who know what they are talking about. And
you would definitely know the difference.
Well, the people on the commercial broadcasts, they know the subjects that they are talking about as well. It's just that
60 seconds, 90 seconds.
It's very and most of my job was doing those 60 and 90 second stories, and they are very tough. And striking things happen in our country all the time. There's always some rough weather somewhere. There are some unfortunate tragedies. Sometimes those have spectacular pictures, and they definitely get your attention. I watch those evening newscasts. The PBS NewsHour may give you a few seconds of those, but they're going to tell you what's going on behind the scenes, in places like Washington, D.C., where they are shaping the policies that make us do what we have to do. And so that's, they just bring great insight and analysis. And, that's why I really admire that newscast.
Actually speaking to our guest today here on the Mother's Justice Show, Essex Porter, it kind of sounds like, in a smaller level, that's kind of why people have gravitated to Converge, is because it's just a longer format. We don't have, hats off to the people at the broadcast station. It's a tough job to be able to tell something and all the information and the news that you can fit into in just a slide of a minute and a half. If you're lucky, 2 minutes. If you're exceptional, maybe even 4 every once in a while. And, we have the ability to push something on 10 minutes long, 15 minutes long if need be. I think the average thing on our platform is probably between 4 and 6 minutes, which we're able. And we still feel like, man, we left this out or we left that out. But, there is an appreciation. I think for a while people thought everybody wanted something in 1 minute. And there is that out there. And I think it's good, that is there, but there is a lot of people who will tell me more information. I have time. I can listen. I can understand.
Right, and that's that's the beauty of what is developing, because there are folks who really need their news and headlines. They do not have the time. They need to know the short version of what's happening in our community and in our country, and they don't have the time to go further. So we need to make sure that those people are served. But also as an industry, as journalism, we need to serve those who would like to know more, who, if we try to tell them more and they're not sure they wanted to, they might realize, oh, yes, I needed to know more. So, there's room across the spectrum. And one of the things, I wanted to be sure to point out about Cascade PBS, I'm on the older end of the spectrum. I'm retired, so I'm always thinking about television. But, you will find Cascade PBS in all the major online outlets. Look for the Cascade PBS app. There's a generic PBS app that has a PBS symbol, but search for the Cascade PBS app because it will say Cascade PBS, and that will connect you very quickly to the local programming we're doing, whether it's the news feed, Mossback. Another great local program led by an African-American woman is Out and Back, Allison Mariella DeSayer, where she basically takes you out in the woods because, there are a lot of people of color who have never felt like the woods are really for us too. And she takes you out in the woods and shows you all kinds of incredible things that you can do, you can enjoy. I remember, a story that she did that was not out in the woods, but I kind of knew this, but I had never focused on the fact, that there are black cowboys here in the Northwest.
Yeah.
They have their events and exhibits and programs, and she took us to the rodeo. It was great. And I guess the thing I'd like people to come away with is there is a diversity of programming that we are able to provide. The federal cuts make that more difficult. So definitely, if you find you can support us, we certainly appreciate that support. But don't feel like it's just off in some corner that doesn't connect to you. Give us a chance. Search for the app. Search for us on YouTube. Look for us on Instagram. You type Cascade PBS in on Instagram, you'll see some of the stories. It is very much a place for this entire Northwest community to be informed and educated and inspired.
Speaking to Essex Porter, longtime reporter, 39 years actually over at KIRO 7. And I'll be honest with you, man, Cascade PBS is fortunate to have you over there on the board. Because, somebody like you said, go explore. I'm really actually going to go and explore. You know what I'm saying?
I think everyone will find something they connect to, even if it's just the British murder mysteries, which can be a lot of fun to watch. I think you'll find something to connect to.
There it is. All right, we're going to continue our discussion with Essex Porter after the break as we talk about what's going on in the Seattle media landscape and actually with FIFA World Cup right around the corner, what's happening in the city of Seattle. You're listening to the Mother's Justice Show right here on 1150 KKNW.
Hey, y'all. It's time we take care of what's ours. The Black Legacy Homeowners Hub is now open at the McKinney Center, a safe space to learn, connect, and protect our family homes. Whether you're fixing up your house, passing it down, or just trying to hold on, we've got real people, real help, and real answers waiting for you. So come on by. Drop in between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at the McKinney Center on 21st and Jackson. Let's keep our legacy strong, together.
Looking for media that truly represents us? Converge Media is where culture meets truth. Seattle's leading Black-owned media network, bringing you powerful stories, local news, and conversations that matter. From the morning update show to groundbreaking community coverage, Converge shines a light on the voices that shape our city, our leaders, our artists, our families. Stay informed, stay inspired, stay connected at whereweconverge.com. That's whereweconverge.com. Converge Media, telling our stories, our way. Being a Black homeowner in the Pacific Northwest comes with questions, and you don't have to find the answers alone. Black Homeowner Magazine is your trusted source for support, education, and community, helping you protect your home, your equity, and your generational legacy. Inside every issue, you'll find real stories, expert guidance, and local resources, all designed to keep Black homeowners informed, connected, and rooted right here in the Pacific Northwest. Because ownership is more than property, it's community. Black Homeowner Magazine, where ownership meets community. When our children aren't safe, none of us can rest. Mothers for Police Accountability has been standing on the front lines for decades, demanding justice, truth, and transparency in Seattle. But we can't do it alone. We need you, parents, students, neighbors, to join us. Volunteer, speak up, be part of the movement that keeps our communities safe and our voices heard. Visit mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. That's mothersforpoliceaccountability.org. And stand with the mothers who never stop fighting for what's right. Mothers for Police Accountability. Love in action for justice.
Giving local voices a chance to shine. Alternative Talk, 1150.
Wow. Okay. Welcome back to the Mother's Justice Show right here at 1150 a.m. KKNW. Big shout out to producer Eric Burris playing the jams over there. Okay, Eric. I see you. Joined in the studio today by the legendary Essex Porter. Man, we've talked earlier today about the Seattle Association of Black Journalists, where he is the treasurer. We've talked about Cascade PBS, where you're on the board of directors and over there making an impact. Essex, now's the time. I want some thoughts from your end as we look out here, the beautiful city of Seattle right behind us here out the window. Man, what's your take of the media landscape right now? What's happening in Seattle?
Well, I don't spend all my time studying the media landscape, and I pretty much watch things from my couch. So I'm no expert on the media.
So let me
landscape.
remix that. Essex, from sitting on your couch and casually watching the media here in Seattle, what's some of your takeaways?
Well, first, I'll say about my friends and former colleagues in television news, those folks are working really hard. I know there's continues to be a lot of pressure on the resources that they have, and
meaning that they have to do more with less.
Yeah, more with less. Sometimes it's and the part of the media landscape is what you're seeing in all these headlines where major corporations are buying and selling other major corporations, and some of these major corporations own TV stations, and is television, also known as linear broadcasting, how well is it going to survive now the multiple media channels where people can find their entertainment, people can find their news, people can get their information. The viewership for linear media channels, the broadcast channels, all of them are down because people find it more convenient to get news from their phones, news from their computers, watch news on YouTube. Sometimes, people like to get news and information and kind of have fun at the same time, somebody they connect with. My question is, have you connected with someone who will be honest with you, who will say, they may express how they feel about something, but maybe they'll also point out, on the other side, as you think about it, you might consider this as well. But, the media landscape has fragmented. It used to be, all of America at night was watching one of the 3 TV networks, and you could guarantee you could strike up a conversation at school or at the office with the most popular show on TV, and most people have watched it. And now you can't. It's very much fragmented. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, we talk about an algorithm with online things. If you choose something, then the algorithm gives you more of that. If the algorithm thinks you're excited or upset about something, it gives you more of that. Well, there's a version of that very same thing that can happen in the linear media as well. So, when you're flipping the dial for say commercial radio, much of the way they tackle things and tackle topics is going to have sort of a similar take to it, even though the personalities are different. Some of the details will be different, because there is an audience for a certain approach. There may not be as loyal or as large of an audience for an alternative approach. So things can tend to group that way.
Yeah, and I got to toot our own horn over here, because when you talk about fragmentation, Converge Media was a big part, an initial part of fragmentation in 2020 with the launch of the Morning Update show, where, weekday mornings, our whole community got news live served up to them, for over 2 years. And that concept of what could be done every day, serving a specific community in high production value and great studio and content and everything else, spawned quite a few other shows that are out there right now. But until before 2020 and Converge stepped out there, I don't brag about us often, but I will say that we were a big part of transforming what is now this new Seattle media landscape. I will say, though, it wasn't just like it's not today. It wasn't activist media. It's just us just delivering the news to our community, which they needed at the time. But we see after the launch of the Morning Update show and a few years after that people in different demographics saw what was possible, and they're kind of running with it.
Yeah. Pardon me. What can happen, because people don't, people have busy lives and lots of stresses. So you don't always have time to try to look past the loudest voice in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
And, the loudest voice in your ear may not be the 100% correct voice, may be leaving out other things you need to know, may have drawn conclusions that you might not draw if you had the time to look at it a little more further. So, the thing to do is, yes, you will hear the loudest voice in your ear, but keep thinking to yourself, why are they saying that? Why are they saying that this way? What they might be leaving out. And that's not to say that someone is necessarily trying to deliberately deceive or trick you, but people have a point of view that they wish to express, but their point of view may not be the only point of view.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting in the landscape here, and a few times a year, the students from the UW School of Journalism, they come down to Converge, and we always talk, and I always tell them, I'm like, we're still here because our viewpoint is kind of like we just call it like we see it. And, during the Seattle protests, we took heat from everybody. That means that we're doing something right. Because when the police were using excessive force and gassing and all this kind of stuff, National Guard, like we called them out, but also when you had a group of protesters who wanted to burn down a Starbucks and there's a Seattle University dorm above it, we're like, yo, this is crazy. Like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And being able somewhere, I think, this is probably a whole nother longer conversation, is that for us, our moral compass was grounded in our community.
Right.
And so it's easy for us to just be like, nah, man, this is wrong. You know what I'm saying? No matter who the perpetrator of that was, it's like, no, and it turns out, of course, the big mamas and those values that they've passed down to us are like the average person's values. It's like, nah, this is, and it was weird because certain things, certain elements, people are coming with such a perspective that is so polarizing. It is so it's really weird. We see it in real time that there's really not a lot of space for somebody who's just like, man, these are just the facts, or maybe the people who are like, these are just the facts, their voice isn't as loud as people who might have an agenda.
Well, Omari, what I've seen from you and Converge is not just the facts. What I've seen from you and Converge is this is our community. These are the facts. And by the way, one of the facts in our community is that we don't want to tear it apart.
Mm.
We don't want it burned down. We want it respected. don't come here to just make a point by breaking a window or starting a fire or plastering or painting something. Yes, we know the facts of the injustice, but we intend to have a community that is livable and not just a monument to anger.
Man, I don't even know what to say to that.
That's what I got from you all the time.
Please timestamp. Oh man, well, thank you, and I appreciate it. And we do our very best to be, like I said, just represent the values of our community. I know we're turning the corner here, and the top of the hour is closely approaching. I wanted to get some thoughts from you. You were at the recent Civic Cocktail. You were in the audience member there with Mayor Wilson. And what were some of your thoughts?
The first, and again, I was in the audience. I wasn't covering this. I did not interview the mayor. Hannah Kim from
Fox 13.
Fox 13 did a great job interviewing the mayor. Mm-hmm. My first thought was, once again, Seattle and our region, but Seattle especially, is faced with just a myriad of super tough problems. Getting something done and making meaningful progress on housing affordability alone would be a really big accomplishment. And that's just, one of probably a dozen things of that size and complexity that a mayor has to face. What I saw first was a community that's really quite divided on approaches. From the questions, clearly there was criticism of the mayor's approach on homelessness and public safety. There were questions and frankly complaints. People were polite, but they were honest with her. That they didn't like what was going on. They didn't feel that she was doing enough or had a plan to make things better quickly. Then when the question of this has been the big question of surveillance cameras in the city and should they be activated? Should these surveillance cameras around the stadium district be activated because we have the World Cup coming up? And this was before she announced her decision to go ahead. When at the time, she said she'd be coming to a decision. She understood the feelings on both sides, and the room kind of just split. If she said something that indicated there might be usefulness to cameras, there was a part of the room that kind of groaned. And if she said, and a part of the room that kind of cheered, and if she said something that, maybe, there are these problems with surveillance cameras, with protecting privacy, protecting information, especially from federal agencies that in Seattle's view would be misusing it. If she said something like that, there would be some cheering. And not in any sort of raucous way, but you could just tell that the room was divided. And I think, that is just the way Seattle is. People want something done about the big issues. There is not, universal thought, feeling, support for any one approach to whether it is homelessness or surveillance cameras or public safety. Yes, we want to be safe. How we get there is tough. And, the mayor did point out that Seattle continues to face huge budget deficit. I think she said it was $175 million budget deficits coming up. So now she faces questions about not only budget cuts, but are there ways to raise money? Raising money is another way of saying raise taxes. And the taxes have become a big debate.
Yeah, I mean, as we like to say all the time here, the rent is too dang high. Dang's okay, right, Eric? I mean, meaning that, man, the cost of livability, just live. I mean, it's great, if you got to own a house, but like, man, just to live in the city is very much untenable for a lot of people. And I think that, like Mayor Wilson, we interviewed her. She was at Converge like 3 or 4 times during her race, and then we interviewed her right after the win and everything else. I think that she's finding what a lot of people find, though, is that, man, leadership is difficult. And not to say that, like, she can't learn on the job and take leadership and other examples in her life and experience and bring this here. But it's hard. Like, when you're on the campaign trail, man, everybody agrees with you. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem of it. And then when the margin of victory was as narrow as it was, that is like, man. And so what we see is like some of her core base is now showing some disappointment in recent decisions, like to turn on the cameras. But I think that, like, the commitment to not turn on the cameras was informed by a majority of the base who's not impacted by the crimes and everything else that other people are. Like, basically what I'm saying is, when she got on the job, within the first 30 days, she was faced with a situation there of, like, having to talk to people on the other side of the issues because of the tragedy there at Rainier Beach. And now hearing from people who have a totally different perspective that's happening in real time, some of those things have informed her decision. And, man, she's backtracked on some things and conceded on some other things. And part of that is listening, part of that is leadership. But, hey.
Well, and, it would usually be an admirable policy, an admirable trait, if you are able to take in new information. Right. And reformulate based on the new information. And I tell you, the thing about cameras is I'm not sure from my coverage over the years how well you are going to settle a debate on, do cameras prevent crime? Do cameras actually help you solve crime? Cameras capture the crime, but how many times did cameras actually solve the crime? When you see the people who with the blurry faces and the mask over their head doing some crime, so you saw them do the crime, is that going to help you actually catch them? That just tells you they did the crime. But for some places, people feel safer. I covered a number of times, and Reverend Walden will know this. I covered a number of times the calls for cameras in the South Seattle area. And so there's a core of people there who truly, truly want them. Whether how much it will help, is a different story. And now, with the current federal administration and the way that they want to rack up everybody's private information, then the question is, do you want to be another repository of information for them to rack up?
As we can tell, the camera question continues. Man, Essex, we're up against it. I want to thank you for taking the time today to join us on the Mother's Justice Show. And I know my mama is smiling so big knowing that you're right here in the studio.
Good to hear you're doing well, Reverend Walden.
Fantastic. Thank you, Essex. Hey, as we turn the corner here, man, I want to remind everybody that I work at an outfit called Converge Media. And I want to encourage you, man, to go to our website at whereweconverge.com. Check out all the great content that's there. There's a lot of content. Like, we push out a lot of stuff. We're trying to catch up with Cascade PBS. So we push out a lot of content every day. You know what I'm saying? And if you feel so inclined, you can press the donate button and support our mission to uplift and amplify Black voices from across the Pacific Northwest. Want to give a big thank you to our producer today, Eric Burris, and to my main man, Eric Calligraphy Wilson. And until next week, I'm out.